My name's Steve. I'm the animal control here in Skiatook.
And how many animals do you typically get through here?
It ranges. Sometimes we get 6 to 7 a week. Sometimes we might not get any.
Living in Skiatook, stray animals are a huge problem, and there really wasn't many options for what to do with them. We do have a 8-run pound in town, and that's if any dog is picked up in city limits, it can go there. But from what I had gathered from talking to friends and people that had dealt with animal control at that time, it pretty much, the dogs got picked up, they sat their stray hold for 3 days, and they were euthanized.
Before I got involved with Skiatook Paws and Claws, in fact, before they were ever formed, we had found a dog over at the soccer fields. I remember driving back over there that night because there was this cold front that's supposed to come in, and I was looking for her and I couldn't find her. But the next day she showed up on Facebook. I don't know how, or maybe it was Instagram. I don't know how I saw it, but she was at Animal Control. I called Animal Control right away and tried to find out if there was a way that I could adopt her, and there really wasn't a great mechanism in place.
There was no, even healthy adoptable animals, there wasn't an adoption program, so they couldn't be sent out to new families. Really, anybody that wanted to get a dog out was a very, very, very long process, and quite frankly, nobody's gonna do that.
We had met with the prior animal control officer, and she sat us down and told us about, before we started, how many dogs would actually get euthanized. She said that there were over 100 dogs that had actually been put down, and that was every year. So
a lot of people go to blame the shelter because they are the ones who end up having to euthanize the dog for, because they don't have space. It's not the shelter's fault. They do what they can. They get the dogs off the street. It's irresponsible owners' fault. People who get dogs and they just have accidental litter after accidental litter, and they go sit up at Walmart and they give them away for free, and they go to more mediocre homes. When we first started, we were not welcome. We fought tooth and nail to get in there. For a long time, we weren't allowed in the pound.
Right. The first year we had a few euthanized just because we didn't get the opportunity to pull everyone that we wanted to.
It was really hard, and I can't believe, honestly, that we got out as many as we did. But we pushed and pushed, and we would have people donate. It was $75 to pull the dog, and we would scrape and get $75 and get the dog out.
It's really hard to think about all of those dogs that were not saved and were not given a chance because people didn't claim them or because they were strays or dumps or whatever.
Anytime that I bring a dog into the program, I make a promise to them that I will be there for them, and I want them to know, even if their time with us is short, I want them to know that they had a good last few days, or, just knowing somebody cared about them.
Gaston was just a lump in animal control. We could not get him out of the cage. He was just such a lump. We did eventually kind of get him outside because we take pictures of him outside. It's too dark in animal control. And he just lay there on the ground, flat on the ground. And we're like, oh, I don't know, is this dog going to be okay?
Cersei was a chronic roamer. Cersei was out all the time, and she was very terrified of people. Christy and I had tried on multiple occasions to catch her. We went to do intake one week, and she was actually in there. That home had been raided for drugs, so they got her on a drug bust, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to that dog. I actually got a call from Steve, the animal control officer, right before I was going to go in, saying that she had went into labor, and I had rushed over, and she had already had 2.
One of my favorite cases, he is a Bernese mountain dog named Rocky. I guess you went to do intake, and he didn't even lift up his head. I've never seen a dog that wanted to die more than he did. He didn't make eye contact. He didn't wag his tail. He was terrified. He hated being there. He had given up. Turns out he was the product of somebody moving and leaving him behind. He had severe flea allergy, and he had itched so bad his hair came out.
Cersei was one of our special cases. She ended up having 9 total. Christy rushed her over to CVH where they helped her deliver the rest of the puppies. She had lost 1, but she ended up having 8 healthy puppies. Her story was special just because we had known that she literally never had someone that loved her. She lived outside her entire life. You know, had never been to a vet ever. And she ended up being an amazing dog. Amazing dog.
As with, most dogs, when you get them out, they become a completely different dog. Once they figure out that they're going to be fed and they're going to be loved and they're going to be cared for and they've got some stability, they come out of their shell. And Gaston was no different. Just very sweet and loving and outgoing, and you would have never guessed that he was the same dog.
You know, I'll never forget, I didn't know his name was Rocky. We had called him Walter because we didn't know who he was. And then a friend of mine who knew the person who had left him messaged me and told me his whole story. And the first time I called him Rocky, he perked up immediately. He turned into a completely different dog, and he knew he was safe, and he was one of my favorites. He was the only dog I've ever cried when he left. And I still, even thinking about him, he was so cute. He was such a good dog, such a good boy, and definitely didn't deserve the neglect that he had suffered.
And that story is true for a lot of the dogs in animal control. They're scared. Some of them are growling at us. Some of them are just, peeing everywhere because they're just so scared. And then you get them out, and we get them vetted, we get them dewormed, vaccinated, everything that they need, and they go to their new foster home. And within a few days, usually, that dog, it just starts blossoming. And there's been so many times I've looked at my husband and said, look at this dog, they're happy now. You would have never guessed that they could be this happy when you saw them.
I think that we have done a pretty good job in,
not only pulling and saving, but I think educating the town on spaying and neutering, and letting people know that there's a rescue in town that's willing to help.
Now we personally go to the pound every single week. We evaluate the dogs as best as we can. We post their pictures on Facebook. Hopefully their owners come forward. If not, after their stray holds up, we make a appointment at my vet clinic where I work, Collinsville Vet. I'm so happy to say that this year we've done, pretty much anything an animal needed that has come our way we've been able to do this year. Foster families are like our, really important insight to what the dogs really like. And we ask for updates all the time and pictures to post on Facebook.
Fosters are angels to us.
Yeah, oh my gosh, we could not do this without our foster families.
We decided to foster as a family. Fostering requires a lot of time commitment. Not only do we have to take care of the animals at our home, but we also have to take them back and forth to the vet. We have to make our homes available for anybody who's thinking they might want to adopt one of our dogs so they can come over and meet the dog and interact. To me, that's the hardest part of fostering is the time commitment. The other hard part is also when we have to allow them to go to their new homes. Some dogs are just really pull at your heartstrings and you get really attached to them. So as I have fostered, we have, as the term, foster failed on a couple of dogs. We decided to keep London because she's a healer mix, and we had recently lost our healer mix to cancer. And from the instant she came in, I can't do that. I can't cry on camera. I'm sorry, I just can't. Okay. From the instant London came into my life, she was attached to me. She was a scared dog that didn't even know how to be on a collar or a leash or anything. But healers are kind of known as Velcro dogs, and she attached herself to me from the very beginning, and we gained this trust.
Once we see a dog that we've had for a while or that's had a certain issue, just find the perfect family. It
makes it all worth it.
So worth it. So worth it. All the stress goes away in that one moment when you see the dog, go right up to it. They have a person.
My name is Jessica, and this is Dory. The first time I met Dory was at the Wolfstock fundraiser, and I I kind of fell in love with her the first time I saw her. She was kind of sleeping in the pen with the other dogs, and I kind of went up to her and I just kind of pet her, and she just kind of leaned her head in my hand, and she was just so sweet. After I decided to consider adopting Dory, I talked with Paige, and she gave me an application to fill out. They called me Monday night and told me that I was approved. One of the biggest things with Skiatook Paws and Claws is that they want to make sure that the dogs they are adopting out are going to good homes and to homes that are going to keep them forever. They get some dogs returned, and so that's why they try really, really hard to make sure that they're matching the right dog with the right person. I'm completely in love with her, and so I definitely don't ever plan on returning her.
I felt like we've had a huge impact on the community because we were able to save all these dogs.
I see a lot of people wanting change, and they think that you have to be a certain kind of person to implement that change, and that's just completely not true. I mean, we're totally normal, like 25-year-old girls, and I mean, we like to do stuff other than animal rescue. You know, we like to, you know, go out, have a good time. You know, we like pumpkin spice lattes, and we like to, you know, go to the movies and stuff like that. But we didn't take no for an answer, and we did something about it, and it's turned into something really amazing.
The second year, we actually succeeded and had 0 euthanized.
We had 0 in 2015, and we've had 0 in 2016.
It's been very stressful, but it's also the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done.
High risk, high reward. It consumes me, honestly, to try to get these dogs out, because the fact of the matter is, you know, if we don't go get them, nobody will. Nobody will. One of my favorite things to do is when we get them from the pound, and generally, you know, they may have a collar, but they don't have, you know, a tag, and we don't know who they are. They're nobody. Nobody is gonna come for them. Nobody cares about them. They would be put to sleep and nobody would care. And when they come to me, you know, I get to pick out a collar, and I get to put their rabies tag on, and I get to put their foster tag on, and they're finally labeled as somebody. And, you know, we care about them. And it's finally, you know, if they do go missing, somebody will care.